Let's build a book nook. A book nook is a cute little model that fits on your bookshelf and even lights up and just makes your bookshelf so lovely and cute. I built this one and I built this one, which now lives in a bookstore where it belongs. Today we're building this one called Sea Breeze for my dear friend. Shout out to Xana if you're watching this. First we unbox everything. Then we get overwhelmed by how much stuff there is. Then the most important step is finding a tutorial on YouTube, and luckily my favorite tutorial channel, Daniel Builds, has this one. Because the directions are always confusing and don't explain things well, so just get rid of them. Then it's time to get started. This model has a lot of things to cut out and glue on. Some models come with the decals printed on the wood already. Some come as stickers, which is my favorite. There's no real way to know until you open it. After a while, I realized I really needed an X-Acto knife, this large pair of scissors, and even the small pair of scissors were just not cutting it. So we'll pick up tomorrow when I can locate my knife. Building a book nook, day 2. Today was interesting. I have an X-Acto knife and also new glue because the one I used yesterday was wrinkling the paper. So I started cutting and gluing and soon found out that my piece of wood was not cut correctly. The hole in the paper doesn't match the hole in the wood. It's supposed to be lower down as per the instruction manual. Eventually, I solved this by painstakingly cutting the wood with a utility knife, and I did not film that, but eventually I glued the paper on, and no one will ever know, except all of you watching this. Then I did more gluing and waiting for it to dry. This triangle piece is supposed to line up with the hole, and it almost does, as we say in the biz, good enough. I did some more cutting and gluing and waiting for it to dry. This is what the model looks like now. Then I took out the wiring to test that the lights work, and at this point I found out not only are batteries not included, but the instructions did not say what kind of batteries it needed. This is why I said to get rid of the instructions. Luckily, our pal Daniel Builds told me what kind of batteries to get. So I went to get them and I wanted to test them in the parking lot before leaving, but the childproofing was impossible to get off and I didn't bring any scissors. Finally, I got them all in and yay, it works. I tested the other lights at home, and yay, they worked. Did some more cutting, and I'm supposed to cut things out like a dream catcher with an X-Acto knife. Okay. Anyway, here's all the friends I cut out. I love these signs that say flowers, candlelight, romantic, leisurely. Then I put these together. I'm not sure what they are. I thought maybe they were books, but then I had to glue these little black gear things inside of them. Then I wanted them to sit and dry overnight, so I grabbed the closest thing to weigh them down, which was a cat quiz, and it mostly worked. What will happen tomorrow? Come back and see. Day 3. Nothing dramatic happened today. I put in the lights, which went pretty well actually, and then I just taped up the wires underneath. We'll deal with those later. I put the mirror piece in the back, which makes it look deeper, and I peeled the film off, which is always exciting. Hello! Then I built this shelf thing for a store. It turns out the things that looked like books are supposed to be coffee bags. Sure. This is what the wall looked like before I had to cover most of it with this arch. But we all know the coffee bags are there, and that's what's important. Then I just did a bunch more cutting and gluing, made a tiny shovel, and forced myself to stop at a reasonable hour. Today I put together a couple of doors and a couple of plants. I spent an absurd amount of time looking through these bead bags for a small black bead, which I never found. So sorry, Zan, you're only getting 2 plants instead of 3, unless I find it later. The directions were not super clear about what the plants are supposed to look like, and they are also extremely tiny, but this is what mine ended up looking like. Yay! And this is what the doors look like. The open sign is so cute. Okay, time to build some rose bushes. So I had to unfold all these pieces of pink paper and then roll them up in a different way, glue them together, and wait for them to dry, and then cut them into pieces in order to make roses. Meanwhile, I had to make a basket out of this piece of wire and that tiny bead, so that was fun. Then I got to glue on all of the little rose pieces to both of the bushes. And here's what they ended up looking like, along with a table with a plant on it. There was supposed to be another plant, but once again, I was missing a bead, so oh well. And then I had to bend all these tiny pieces of wire to go around the signs to look like wrought iron. So I got on my pliers and I did some bending, and I had to wait a long time between each because each piece needs to be glued on separately. But I also built this window frame, did some cutting, my favorite thing, and then some gluing. It ended up looking pretty nice, very seaside vibes. This is what the signs looked like. That one is done. This one is almost done, and we'll finish that up tomorrow. Big day, big day. I started by putting this window together, and then I cut out these blue pieces that would become shutters on another window. I had to fold them, glue them, cut them, and then glue them into window frames. But back to the window, I made curtains out of gauze, and here's what both looked like. The shutters are a little janky, but it's the seaside, so it's the vibe. Then I had to glue string to these teeny tiny beads and then glue those to these other beads that I had already glued little metal tack things into. And these are lanterns that will hang from this trellis that I also put together. Then I finally got to go back to the main model and start on a wall. Yay! I put on the store wall from forever ago and added the door, which makes it absolutely impossible to see those coffee bags I made. So I'm glad you all know that they're there at least. I added the rose bush, which was way too big, so I had to prune it a little bit so it would fit. I added the roof and the second door and more plants, including another one I had to prune. And these are also not going to be visible once the balcony is all up, but oh well. And then, disaster. The little shovel fell off and I could not find it. After an extensive search, it was located and I glued it back on so it couldn't run away again. Then I added the rest of the balcony. I can no longer see those plants or the stone I put in, but we know they're there. And here's what it looks like now. So cute. Time to get more glue. Went on a little outing and got my favorite tacky glue, and then I headed back and glued some things, like this little lantern that looks like a disco ball cowboy. Oh, I love it. I went back to working on the wall and discovered my next fun and interesting challenge, which was that this piece of wall didn't line up, which it has to because the front piece has to go on evenly. So I had two choices: saw down this piece, which would require a saw and knowledge of how to use a saw, or rip up the existing piece and push it over. So I ripped it off and it actually worked, and I was able to angle it over and add the other wall piece back on and line it up correctly. There were some incidents, but the wall pieces and the roofs covered them all up, and this is what it looked like when it was at the end. Some people might be discouraged by these types of challenges. I love them. I think my brain needs them to avoid falling into the pit of boredom and despair. Then I kept gluing stuff. A lot of things need to be partially glued and then left to dry before I can finish them, so there's a lot of half-finished things at the moment. But I did get to make a few books, which involves cutting out a long strip of paper and then folding it and then putting just a little bit of glue on it. Again, some might find this tedious and boring. I find it fun. This is what the little book looked like. It is so cute. Here's all of them together and also a pair of tweezers so you can see how tiny they actually are. Alrighty, welcome back. First thing I noticed today was I glued the lanterns on the wrong side of this piece of wood. So I redid them. I ripped them off and re-glued them, and now it looks like this, and it's so cute. We love it so much. Then back to Old Faithful, cutting and gluing. Here are some really cute guitars I made. They are so tiny. I can't even describe how tiny they are, but I love them. And some tiny signs, one in English, the others in, I don't know, Turkish maybe? I have no idea. And then I had to put that green plant stuff into those tiny little shells and beads, but they look pretty good in the end. Then I put these bookshelves together and they're just so cute. I can't believe it. And then I put the bookshelves onto the wall, and since we know something's going to block it, I have to show you all that it exists, and that's Starry Night up there. So now you all know that Starry Night is in here somewhere, and all those books I glued together are there too. Here's the final wall with everything glued on. It's definitely going to get covered up, so admire it now while you still can. Okay, these are lanterns, and those little plastic things inside did not want to stick to the wood with my normal glue, so I had to be brave and get out the super glue, which I always glue my fingers together when I use it, and yes, in fact, I did that again, but I got the plastic things to stay in. Do they look good? Not so sure. And the lanterns got little hats as well, which are super cute, but a little annoying to glue. I made some more cowboy disco balls. I did glue these incorrectly 2 to 5 times maybe, but eventually I got it together and got them to stay on this archway, and they look pretty cute. And it has that cute sign that says My Bookstore, a sign we all hope to have in our lives one day. And then I got to beading some curtains. I glued a bead at the bottom, I sorted the rest of the beads, and then I strung them. I did lose probably around 5 beads during this process, but they ended up looking pretty good. I put together a tiny chair and a pillow to go on top of it, although the pillow ended up being a little large for the chair, but that's okay, it's still cute. Then it was time to put the archway in the archway. Oh, there's the beaded archway already. And of course, it's going to cover our beautiful wall that we put together, and you're not going to be able to see any stuff in there. It looks really cute, and we all know that inside there's a starry night and guitars. Here we have a tiny little table with a martini shaker and a candle and a martini filled with what looks like chocolate, not sure. Made some plants. Don't you just love when materials turn into real things? Love it. Here are all the little plants lined up one after another. And what do you think this is going to be? Oh, it's lemon. It's pieces of lemon. And here we have our little meal board being put together and the table on which it goes, along with its candle and its flower and its little glass of water with a piece of lemon. Then we have chairs and they get cushions. Soon this will all be something real, I swear. We are back. We are so back. Taylor Swift is announcing a new album this week, and I am working on my book nook. Here we have me trying to string these curtain bead things. Yeah, it was a lot. I had to separate out all these beads and then string them onto those tiny little strings. But you know what? I did it. I had to put some glue on the end of each of these strings to keep the beads on them. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but that's what I came up with. Anyway, here's what they looked like. Yay, good job. Then I went back to my old friend cutting and gluing. Cut out this little sign and glued it onto its piece of wood. How cute is that? Put together some little windows. I have no idea where they're going, but just glued on their little sidebars. And then I glued this easel together, which that little sign will go on, and here's what it looks like. It's so cute, I know. And then I finally moved on to a new wall. I cut out some images that get glued behind the doorway and the window frames to make it look more like real stuff, even though the pictures are blurry. It's fine. Here's what it looks like in the end. I think it's pretty cute. Then I had to glue on the door frame with all of those beaded curtains. Do you think I'll finish this by the end of the summer? By Christmas? By 2026? What do you think? Woohoo! Time for more beads. Here we go, sorting all of the beads out. I had to make 40 different strings of them, so I had a lot of sorting to do, and I glued them all on to their strings. I lost several of them along the way, and they are lost to the floor and the couch forever. Here's what they looked like when they were finished. This is the roof of the book nook. I glued some stars onto that and then glued the beaded things onto that because they are going to hang down like that. I glued on these 6 lights that go at the top of the mirror, and then I put this piece together. Okay, it's time to make this wall into more than just a wall, but an experience. Add some hanging plants, some window frames that would not get in there, but I finally got them to stay. Roofs, window shades, more plants, everything. I noticed that later in the instructions there were roses, so I added those on too. And back to my least favorite things, these freaking lamps, which the super glue did not really hold together, but I put them over those little lights, and then I had to fill the in-between with sand. So I put some glue in and thought maybe that would work. The sand was in the same package as those huge rocks, so I just kind of spooned some in and hoped for the best. And then I realized that the sand on top wasn't going to stay, only the sand on the bottom. So after I put it in, I put glue on the top and kind of just hoped that would keep everything in, and then I put my phone down instead of recording and recorded nothing for like 10 minutes. Whoopsies. Here's what the sand looked like in the end. Hopefully there's not too many loose pieces left, but there probably are, so whatever. Then I put on that side thing with the beaded curtain we made a while ago. This lamp was supposed to fit into that hole, but the wire was not long enough. It was driving me crazy. Like, why would you not just make the wire longer than necessary instead of exactly right? So I just made the hole bigger and finally got the lamp in and then taped it with some electrical tape to keep it there. Added some lovely plants to the staircase. No one will ever see this again, but you guys will know that that shell with the plant and flowers I made is like so good. Then it was finally time to add a wall, an entire wall. I know, how exciting is that? Put together this sign, leisurely flowers, candlelight, romantic, because yeah, totally. Anyway, started putting all the stuff on the side of the wall, chairs, railings, plants, all that fun stuff. Put it all together. Oh, that's how cute it looks. You'll never see it again, but that's what it looks like, the little martini glass that we made. And then I slid in this beautiful wall we made with the roses and the windows. Added a lamp and the easel, the chairs, the tables, all of it. And my friends, the inside is done.
Oh, yeah!
Okay, here's what it looks like with the roof on. Those little beaded things hang in front of the lights. They look so cute. I put on the front piece, which frames the whole thing. I put together the little box that holds the switch and the front piece that the switch goes through. And when you're doing one of these, you want to always check that the lights still work at every step of the way before you glue something else, because you never know when they suddenly stop working. Luckily, mine still work, and they look even better in the dark. And here's the switch securely in place. And the lights, yeah, they still work. Okay. Oh my God, we are coming to the end. I cut out the side decals for the side of the book nook, one of the last steps before finishing. Glued them on to the sides. Here with some interesting directions. It is of velocity when we touch it with our hands. Totally. One of the sides says, free as the wind, pure as white, as blue as the sea, as firm as a stone. It belongs to oneself. Don't you just love poorly translated things? I sure do. Got the rest of the sides cut out and glued on, and it's done. How cute is this? Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you very much.